We begin with the relationship between Australia and China. We talk about it a lot. Today it's facing a new test, a grave new test. Confirmation today that an Australian man who's been held for 7 months now in China is now facing espionage charges. Yang Hengjun is a writer and a scholar, a critic too of the Chinese system. He's also a dual national. Well, now he's been charged with a very serious crime, one that carries a penalty of years in jail or possibly even a death sentence. No evidence has been presented throughout the past 7 months, and Yang Hengjun has been given no proper legal representation. That's not how China's legal system works, of course. If you're charged, you're almost always convicted. The conviction rate, in fact, in China is 99.9%. So this is the step that Australia feared. But its protests over recent months have really been ignored by Beijing. Today, the Foreign Minister has stepped up the pressure. Marise Payne has issued this statement about the arrest that's been made. The government is very concerned and disappointed, she says, to learn that Australian citizen and academic Dr. Yang Hengjun was formally arrested in China on suspicion of espionage and will continue to be criminally detained. She says our thoughts are with Dr. Yang and his family at this very difficult time. Dr. Yang's been held in Beijing in harsh conditions, she says, without charge for more than 7 months. Since that time, China's not explained the reasons for his detention, nor has it allowed him access to his lawyers or family visits. Marise Payne goes on to say, I've discussed this twice with China's Foreign Minister and have written to him 3 times stating my concerns and those of the Australian government and people. We have serious concerns for Dr. Yang's welfare and about the conditions under which he's being held. We've expressed these in clear terms to the Chinese authorities. This is an important part too. She says it's important and we expect that basic standards of justice and procedural fairness are met. I respectfully reiterate my previous request that if Dr. Yang is being held for his political beliefs, he should be released, and that is the concern here. The Attorney-General, Christian Porter, fronted the cameras a couple of hours ago in Perth to add his concerns about this.
Well, we're always concerned when Australian citizens are arrested overseas. I understand the conditions that are being applied are not those that we would necessarily come to expect on arrest in Australia. Every consulate assistance will be offered the individual, so it is a matter of concern, as it always is. Our path as a government is to always offer the greatest level of assistance that we can provide, but there are always going to be limitations to that when someone is arrested on a charge for an offence in another sovereign jurisdiction.
Labor says it fully supports the government's efforts and position here. It's equally concerned and dismayed at this development. But take a look at this. The Deputy Prime Minister, the Acting Prime Minister, Michael McCormack, wouldn't even say today if he's disappointed about this development at all. Instead, in a bit of an example here of how torn the government can be when it comes to China, Michael McCormack has talked up the importance of taking advantage of the trade relationship wherever possible and not upsetting that.
Are you disappointed, though, with how China has handled this situation?
Well, look, it's not for me to say I'm disappointed or not. The fact is, it's happened. There are protocols in place and processes in place, and they are unfolding as we speak. We need our strong relationships and links with China. We're making sure that every opportunity is taken advantage of as far as the chapter is concerned.
Do you have concern for the treatment of this man? Has he been tortured?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
You don't
I
seem
can't
very
comment.
concerned about
well, I can't comment. I can't comment because I don't know.
Well, yes, you can understand why people want to take advantage of the trade relationship, absolutely, but that doesn't mean our government in particular shouldn't be calling out when this happens, when an Australian citizen is detained for 7 months, then charged with spying, when, as the Foreign Minister says, he's not a spy, and there hasn't been access, proper legal access from family members, and more importantly, no evidence produced at all by China as to what he's said to have done wrong. So who is Yang Hengjun? What's really going on here? Well, he was born in China. He's a dual citizen, as I say. He graduated from university there. He worked for China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, based in Beijing, for about 5 years. And his work, it's understood, was connected to the Chinese secret police. But he grew disillusioned with the system there and more interested in, well, literature and liberalism. After working in Hong Kong, he then went to the United States to work for a think tank, the Atlantic Council, and from there it was Sydney, where he studied for a PhD at the University of Technology. As he studied, he was writing more and more, including a thesis on the rise of bloggers in China and the efforts of the Chinese Communist Party to control the internet. He wrote spy novels as well, including a trilogy about an American-Chinese double agent. Dr. Yang gained Australian citizenship as his work continued. But his blogs, his academic work as well, powerfully detailed the problems with communist China and the values of democratic institutions. This, presumably, is what angered China. Back in 2011, he was briefly detained in China, but look, he played it down at the time. Then in January this year, young Hengjun was detained by Chinese authorities while he was passing through Guangzhou. He was detained at the airport there. His wife and daughter were with him en route to Shanghai. He was accused at the time by China of, quote, endangering national security. And as I say, been held for about 6 months under so-called residential surveillance at an undisclosed location. Then mid-July, mid-last month, Australia was formally notified that he'd been moved to criminal detention. That was a worrying development. And then today comes an even more worrying development. Throughout all of this, as I say, no proper legal representation, no access to family. He's apparently been interrogated twice a day during all of this, and no evidence has been made public to show what he's said to have done wrong. Now that he's been arrested on this espionage charge, Dr. Yang does face the opaque Chinese legal system, the prospect of years in jail. Of course, this charge can also carry the death penalty too, which is why it's so worrying. Cheng Fengyi is a close friend of young Hengjun. He too was detained in China at one point. He spoke to Sky News earlier about just what his friend has been through.
Yang Hengjun has been a well-known blogger, writing hundreds of articles critical of Chinese political system. He has been followed and persecuted by the Chinese authorities for quite a long while, and now it has been escalated in this higher level. And the Australian government have the obligation to protect the safety of its citizens in China. The first 6 months was the worst period of him. He has been held in a small cell with the light on 24 hours a day, and the 2 guards on shift to stay in the room for 24 hours a day. And then he has regularly subject to continuous interrogation by the secret police, and deny sleep, deny outdoor activity. His health has deteriorated very badly during this period of isolated detention. So Australian government have to repudiate the charge and get him out as soon as possible.
These concerns for young Hengjun's personal fate are very real and very understandable. There's also, of course, the broader concern about what this case is going to mean for the bilateral relationship. China has angered Australia with this development today, this charge. It's ignored Australia's calls to produce evidence so far. In response, we see Marise Payne turning up the temperature as well, referring to, in her statement, the harsh conditions he's faced, the lack of explanations, the failure to provide proper legal process. She's also strongly hinted that Australia suspects he's being held as a political prisoner by a state that can't handle free speech and is willing to take pretty extreme steps to shut down those who do dare offer public criticism.